The order. Could everyone please stand for the pledge? Thank you. Want to motion? Do I have a motion to approve the agenda? Do I have a second? All in favor, say aye. Approval agenda has passed. The approval of the minutes from the December 20th regular meeting. Do I have a motion? Second? Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Thank you. Approval of minutes have passed. Move on. Second. Good morning and welcome to our January Ocean Pines Association Board of Directors meeting. We appreciate everyone taking the time to join us this morning. Director Lackernick has an excused absence for today. Hope everyone had a great holiday season. Great news to report regarding the cell tower that was recently unanimously approved by the Worcester County Board of Zoning Appeals. I'd like to thank Chief Robinson for his efforts in shepherding that project along. We're still targeting for late fall completion, I believe. Thank you. That's good. We're also looking forward to getting started with the Ocean Pines Volunteer Fire Department, the construction project, very soon. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in the meeting. As I like to do is try to highlight a few events in our neighborhood for all to take advantage of during the winter months. We have lots going on. And as I like to say in the Pines, you can do as much or as little as you like to do in our community. There's a little bit for everybody, I believe. So we have a sip and shop event at the golf shop on February 6th from 5 to 7. It will include a meet and greet for our new golf director, Matt Ruggieri. Come out, enjoy 50% off all golf clothing. Ocean Pines Yacht Club has Friday evening $20 rotating dinner entrees. Trivia continues to be a huge hit at the Yacht Club on Thursday evenings from 6 to 8. That place is normally packed every week. Ocean Pines Farmers Market continues to operate during the winter months on Saturday mornings from 9 till noon. So stop up there and check those folks out. The Art League of Ocean City will host an Art Uncorked wine pairing and dinner fundraiser at the Yacht Club on February 12th. I'm not sure if it's sold out yet, but they normally do sell that out, and come out for that event. Check it out at the Yacht Club. Ocean Pines Golf Club will host the Super Bowl party on February 8th. You can inquire right here at the golf club for tickets for that event. Last but not least, bocce ball registrations opening. Registration opens January 26th. They're hosting the bocce ball camp coming up on February 14th and 21st, and that's really taken off really well, and a lot of folks are really involved in that. As many of you may know, several budget meetings were held throughout December and January. The general manager and his team presented the budget, made themselves available to answer questions. The meetings were also shared online through Ocean Pines Association on the website. This was a culmination of many hours of hard work, and a review has resulted in a budget that will include an annual $40 increase in the assessment. As the general manager has mentioned many times, this is a result of an increase to cover new fire station and the increased water costs from Worcester County. The board of directors will be voting on that recommendation from the general manager this morning for our fiscal 26-27. I believe it's a well-represented and fiscally responsible budget that we'll bring forward. Thank you very much. John, I'll turn it over to the general manager.
Thank you, John. Okay, so we always start off with some pictures to highlight what's been going on the last month. So obviously, we have many items, but the irrigation project down here is in full effort, and we're on track. All right, so this is what we'll cover today between Linda and myself. Obviously, the recommended budget for 26-27, which John just gave you highlights on, but we'll give you a little more detail on that, the initiatives, and a couple other items. Turn the page. All right, so the recommended, and John said it, it's a recommended budget for the fiscal year 26-27, and apparently the board is going to vote on that today, and that's very exciting for me. So let's just go through it. So we met with the department heads. I call them the SMEs. They're the subject matter experts. It was a bottom-up prepared proposed budget forecasted current fiscal year. We met with Budget and Finance Committee and the board, conducted a DMA study with working session. The DMA study is a reserve study, which all homeowners associations are now required to do. We were ahead of the curve starting in 2017. I feel, my team feels it's a very valuable tool. Reinvested in the assessment. What I mean by that, it's a balance of retained earnings resulting from favorability to budget. So we hear a lot, and we get a lot of feedback on info that, you know, you got this favorability, what are you doing with it? Well, we reinvest that in each year into the next assessment. And that's kept the assessment at the modest increases. And modest is a subjective word, but I believe it's modest. The team delivered one of the largest bodies of work during this period, at least what I've seen in the 20 plus years that I've been here. And what does that mean? Well, not just a solid recommended budget in a timely manner, as well as what I've mentioned, this reserve study, DMA. That is months and months of work. It is a tool that we'll use for the next 20, 25 years with intervals of updating. It's how we manage, or I've managed it in the team, Ocean Pines. Ocean Pines Volunteer Fire Department contract, a joint effort, constructive professional with the Ocean Pines Volunteer Fire Department. I believe, again, a very solid contract and a solid building that we'll build. And of course, the board and the people of Ocean Pines who funded it. Turn the page. Key items that were addressed in this recommended budget at this point: public safety, and I've spoken about that numerous times, but I know every month I should highlight certain items. Safety today, as a part of the budget, is somewhere around 42% of the budget. And this, we have answered and heard the surveys throughout the last several years where safety is the number one in the Ocean Pines. And we certainly have done that with our police department over 6-7 years, as well as the fire department. Maintenance, infrastructure, amenities, food and beverage, aquatics, golf, racket, and recreation. Just want to take a minute to talk about it. And I want to highlight food and beverage and golf. Throughout the last couple of years, we've heard about, golf, there could be a recession. There could be a recession that would affect food and beverage. We haven't seen that. The numbers in the budgets, the management teams that are in there are showing increased results, which certainly shows favorability into the budget process each year. I mean, food and beverage alone, they're forecasted to be $400,000 more in favorable revenue than last year. And the same thing, not to that number, but golf also. I want to talk about the grounds, public works, and I have mentioned this in the past. We talked about leaves last year in the ditches and how we would approach it, and we've had big time success, and I call that Together We're Better with the association, who have done a great job, and it certainly has been reflected in the drainage. We did in this budget, we will not be doing some of that work that we did in the ditches to mow the ditches. We would get a lot of negative feedback from homeowners that said that we kind of cut into the grass or it was a negative effect. That will not be in the budget. That money has been reallocated for other drainage work. The roads, we do an annual road evaluation and resurfacing. We have an enhanced program on that. Same thing with bulkheads. The drainage, I mentioned that we're putting more money into that as we repurpose our expenses. The capital, well, I talked about the DMA study, and then obviously the initiatives, the fire department and the food and beverage. Lynn, turn the page. Bottom line, our assessment, as John mentioned, is $915, $25 for what we talked about, we've talked about for over a year to fund the firehouse, a modest number. And I believe it worked out to $15 on the water assessment. Even over, it was an overall $21 that it affected the assessment. Some of it was pushed into the pricing of some of the amenities. And of course, food and beverage and Touch Italy absorbed a decent piece of that. The bulkhead differential is $665. Put in perspective, last time in this range around 2013, 2014, last 6 years only raised 2 times. I'm talking about the assessment. So you'd have to go back to 2013 to 2014 to see where the assessment was lower. Granted, it was the last couple of years, but that's all been part of this program. But back then it was, I think, $913 in 2013-14. Linda will describe the rest of the process. The other thing just let me tell you on the bulkhead. Yes, the bulkhead, there was an increase of $25, but I believe we've only raised the bulkhead differential twice over 6 years, only twice. And now we have the DMA study, which has highlighted certain situations as we go down over the years with the bulkheads. Linda will describe the rest of the process.
Okay. The first proposed budget was put out on December 16th. Second version was posted January 9th. Budget and Finance presentation was held on December 18th with the next day the board review. Section 9.04 of the bylaws says the general manager shall prepare a proposed annual budget and submit to the board of directors not less than 90 days prior to the beginning of the fiscal year. And then section 5.14A of the bylaws said the board shall approve a budget then for the ensuing year at least 45 days prior to the beginning of the fiscal year. Initiatives. South Station Firehouse Building, status is green. Contract is being presented today for approval to sign. Once we get the shovel on ground, it's going to be 60 weeks to complete.
So if we just take that from the P&L side or the funding, we've been right on track. The budget's somewhere around 5.2 million. That's a combination of the 2.9 million that the referendum and that the association and of course the board has approved and given us to work with. So the 2.9 from that comes from Ocean Pines, and the difference are the grants, to a certain degree, the grants and the money that the volunteer fire department has put forward, somewhere in the 5.2. We've been on track with that for a while.
Okay, golf course irrigation, that was on the first slide. We do have phase 2 still in the process, and they're currently working on hole number 4 and all new irrigation heads on holes 7 and 8.
So as Linda mentioned, we're currently in phase 2. Phase 3 would be the recommended budget. Both are spent about 800 in that ballpark of 850,000, as we are on track for the overall budget that we mentioned several years ago. There has been emergency spending, all within the confines of the 4.0 million that we've projected.
Okay, and initiatives for the food and beverage, we had the clubhouse pavilion, going right out here. Status is green. We're still getting the engineering on that. So next steps would be bids for construction and board approval. Yacht Club kitchen, status green. Again, that's with the engineer. And the next steps would be for bid for construction and board approval. And beach club, status green. Next steps for bids and board approval. It will be done next year.
So from the financial side on these 3 initiatives, if I take it in total, what we're forecasting and what we will be budgeting, we're talking about an outlay from Ocean Pines of $1.5 million. A lot of that was from the DMA study that we would have had to replace anyway. For instance, the decks, and a lot of the work is at the beach club. The bulk of that money is the beach club, which we would have been investing anyway. Here's what I want to highlight. Touch of Italy is also investing in all 3 structures. They are also doing a lot of the work. So what we will have at the end of the day certainly cost way more than 1.5 million. And we can break that down at another time, or if you want to send me something at info@Ocean Pines, we'll detail that. Touch of Italy is investing in this. So it's a combination. The investments, when you look at the contract, and I just talked to Touch of Italy yesterday, they're building a bar right now, as an example. They're redoing the bar in the yacht club. And I have to say, I'm fortunate that I'm able to go in there and see it. The structure and what they're building is way better than what we had. Way better. We are investing some money in it, but at the end of the day, that entire bar is ours. Same thing with the beach club. I mean, some kitchen equipment or whatever, that would be theirs, but they're here for the long haul.
Okay, that's just the 4-letter word no one wants to hear. 2 to 4 inches of snow expected. They did lower it, so it's supposed to start either later this evening, but ice is a consideration as well. So we have 6 plows in operation along with 5 other pieces of equipment. 3 salt spreaders and 100 tons of salt are available to use. I know a lot of people probably saw Public Works out the last 2 days, brining the streets. So as long as it don't start with rain, then it should be successful in getting the roads cleared. Maintenance, kitchen floor was redone in community center. Usually this is done in-house. We did have a few instances that it had to be level per the health department. So we had a company do it and it cost $3,850 and it looks really good. So if anyone wants to stop in and take a look at it. Leadership. I know that John brought this up back in the September meeting. It was introduced. Amenities are the economic engine of OPA, driven by our senior management team and results of constructive board and association. Senior management consists of Eddie Wells, Steve Phillips, Justin, and myself. This is the institutional knowledge of Ocean Pines, along with our general manager. That's part of the succession plan. It's in place, and in leadership meetings, it's not, Joe Reynolds used to always call John the financial wizard, but John's more than just a financial wizard in my eyes. So he's a great leader, and that's why we are successful in everything that's done. CPI violations for December, 123 violations. Still open. We did close out 29. 83 of the 123 violations are still illegal. I'll have to give credit to the legal department this month. They were on it, thanks to the new legal representative.
Yep.
Yes. So we have closed out a tremendous amount. We have some in resolution. We do have a few more court dates, affidavits for flying in to me almost daily. So thank you for that. Work orders for December, 129 work orders, still open. Majority still in drainage, 51. 6 served, 30 days, 43 over 60 days. But of course, they're getting ready for snow. And so they'll be working on the drainage work orders as soon as they can. And customer service, 46 were emails and phone calls. Any questions, email info@oceanpines.org.
Financials. Okay, so we talk about the financials. I call this obviously the report card for us. I just want to highlight again, the financials, whether it's favorability or whatever, or they look good or we feel they're good, it's all about delivering results. And what we try to do, what we do is, that's the whole idea of the presentation. And what Linda's doing and what I'm doing is showing you what you're getting for your assessment. But of course, this is a big part of it. This is the report card. So for the month, you know, I learned a long time ago, and it was actually Joe, he said, go right to the bottom right corner and tell them what that number is, because you go through the detail, they really look at that number and we see it's right. So we're favorable. We're favorable to budget, right? Favorable to budget. And that's how I'm supposed to report, the GM report every month, which we do. So we're favorable, but what's just causing that favorability? So when you look at it, we do have favorability, Public Works. When you see the year-to-date, this will come more into perspective. But when you look at Public Works, we're getting everything done. So it's not just, okay, well, we have favorability there, and obviously Public Works is an expense support department, but we're getting everything done. And that's how I look at this, not necessarily whether that number is a plus or minus. The finance, this favorability, we have seen some stuff there. There has been some open positions over the year, not just the month. But again, what I want to highlight is we've delivered everything. The team has delivered everything, even though we might have been shorthanded. And that's a credit to the team, as well as the person who happens to be out, because it's their team and they're aligned with what we've said about backup, cross-training, and that type of work. Turn the page. All right, so here it is, bottom line. We're approximately just high, 400,000, 391 to be exact. Favorability to budget. To put it into perspective, in order for us to keep the assessment in the range we're at, this current year and the recommended budget, we utilized around $550,000 to $600,000 of that favorability. So we would have to achieve that just to keep it level for the budget for the next one. Right? Hopefully, if anybody wants more on that, send it to info@oceanpines.org. That's a big mechanical piece of the assessment. I want to make sure everybody understands it, or at least those that want to. The finance, I'll hone in on that one. Like I said, we had an open, we were open somewhere around 5 months for a position. But I want it to be heard. That's a compliment to the person that wasn't here and how the team that we've built and cross-trained with everybody else and how everybody pitched in to cover that and deliver the body work. And I can tell you this, whoever has been out, and we've had some people out, when they come back strong. The marketing favorability, I'm gonna hand off to Linda. She's been doing a great job with that and her team, just to tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, marketing favorability. We did receive a grant for, it's a community outreach grant, so it'll go against the activity guide that's coming out next month. So we do have that favorability. We also have decreased expenses. Even though we're increasing marketing, we're decreasing some other aspects of marketing as well.
So I want to highlight on the police department there, and I had a very good meeting with Chief Robinson and Steve yesterday on the police for this year and next year. Yes, there were openings in some of the police positions. The chief has a plan for next year on what he's looking to send to the academy. So he is working on filling those positions. In the meantime, I believe him and his team have given us good coverage here. But that is the reason for the favorability there. The Rec and Parks. Well, I got to say this, it is a compliment to that team, to everybody, where we did have a situation last year, which I spoke about, Linda spoke about, I believe Debbie did, where we had a situation, well, actually, I'm going to ask Linda to highlight it. She's in charge of Rec and Parks, but we corrected it, the situation we had, and we certainly see the favorability. So Linda, why don't you tell them a little bit about what you and Debbie and the team have done?
Okay, it was with the camps. Camps, people sign up for them, and then they do not show up. And this could be an area that we could actually have, when people have a standby list, we could be filling in. So we lost revenue there. So we started a new policy where if you are out, you still owe the money unless you get, so we required them to sign up for those classes, for those weeks, and to ahead of time, tell us which weeks they're not going to be there. They're still required to pay for the weeks that they did not show up.
Okay, just we've pretty much said it. I'm watching the time, but two more that really need to be highlighted. When you look at the food and beverage, you only see a 1 in favorability. What you need to look at is this. Last year, the last fiscal year, if you look at food and beverage, all in with depreciation, we lost rounded numbers, we lost $100,000. What we have forecast, what we are projecting, and what we did in the budget this year, when you talk about the word pivot, this year it's a positive $150,000, where after depreciation, we are forecasting and we budgeted for that 150. So negative 100, positive 150 is a 250 divided by 8,500 homes. You do the math, but that's somewhere $25, $30 that helped us on the assessment this year. And what I am hearing from that management team, better for next year. But again, that's what they're planning on. So always glad to hear it. One thing I can tell you is they are definitely working with my other amenities, our support teams, as well as our golf team. The golf is the other one I want to highlight on there, and it's been great results. Everybody that's been involved in golf over the years or whatever, I don't want to miss anybody. But the team that has been put in there, the management team, the vision is the vision I had, Linda and I had for golf and others. They are working well with food and beverage. Food and beverage is working well with them. I am excited about the rest of this year as well as next year with that combination of the management teams. All right, so we always include this. This really tells us about our health, the cash. We've been right on target. I have talked about a Goldilocks situation. DMA certainly proved that out. It's always good when the outside third party comes in and basically validates what our team has been saying. So there it is. We'll update this on you, but it's all on track with the DMA study.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Linda. Monica, Treasurer's Report.
Thank you, John. As of December 31st, the association had approximately 14.2 million in cash. Cash decreased 900,000 from the same time period last year. Cash decreased 1.4 million from November 2025. We have 8 million invested in CDARS. We realized 45,000 in interest income. And with the remaining 6.2 million is insured cash sweep accounts, treasury bills, money markets, and 2 other operating accounts diversified between 2 local banks.
Thank you, Monica. At this time, we'll move to public comments. Members wishing to make comments must state their name and address. Time limit for comments is 5 minutes per person. If you'd like to make comments, please come forward. Amy?
Amy Peck, 109 White Horse Drive. I was unable to attend the town hall. I again am asking that the board reconsider allowing public comments hybridly for those who cannot attend in person. My comments are regarding the budget. First, I believe the board should revisit the marina slips, a 3% increase, half of which is simply higher water costs, does not keep pace with inflation. There is a 3-year waiting list, and our rates remain well below comparable marinas. With 4 board members who are boaters, it should be clear that slip revenue can be responsibly increased, especially if we are pinching pennies elsewhere and realizing less interest income. And that brings me to the next item, which is the volunteer appreciation dinner. Last year, the board approved a $10,000 budget. The event ultimately cost $30,000 for 185 attendees. That equals $162 per person. Many attendees were not volunteers at all. They included OPA staff, paid first responders, politicians, corporate counsel, and select press, and invited only certain club members. I want to remind the board that the original purpose of this event was to recognize board-appointed committee volunteers, not just to host a broad social gathering. Since the last volunteer dinner, the board has eliminated 9 committees, removing and disenfranchising roughly 50 volunteers from eligibility. Yet the proposed budget allocates $15,000 for 130 guests, or roughly $115 per person. If 50 volunteers and their guests are no longer included, attendance should drop by closer to 100 people, not just 55. This raises concerns that non-volunteers may again be invited, while some actual volunteers are excluded. As noted during the budget town hall, many residents volunteer extensively for organizations that directly benefit Ocean Pines. This includes Maryland Coastal Bays, Assateague Coastal Trust, the Kiwanis, the Garden Club, Rec and Parks volunteers, etc. None of them in the past were invited to the event. There is also the question of whether a board-funded appreciation dinner should include an open bar. Optics matter. As structured, this event sends the wrong message about priorities and fiscal stewardship. I'm asking that those line items should be removed from the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Peck. Oh, I diametrically disagree with many of those comments, but we will move on. Any further, Colette, please.
Colette Horn, 35 Sundial Circle. So I have a question about the pre-treatment of the roads. Do you know what the composition of that pre-treatment chemical is and what the potential impact on our waterways may be?
On the waterways?
Mhm.
So I don't have the exact, I can tell you this because we actually spoke about this the other day, Eddie and myself. It is drastically a major reduction in the use of salt versus just spreading salt, tremendously. So you're going to have to use salt anyway. This is a tremendous decrease in salt. I can tell you that. The exact formula, I can give you that if you come in or if you send, remind me. But we only use like 2 pounds per X amount. Do you remember how many gallons or whatever? It's very small, Colette. So to answer your overall question, which I believe is by doing that, we're using less salt. As far as how that goes into the water, I actually have been looking at it, what the effect is on the roads, and we've been brining for several years, if not more, and we haven't seen any deterioration on the roads. As far as getting into the water, I don't have anything on that. But the brining, I think the answer to your question is the brining is using tremendously less salt.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And then, second point that I wanted to put on the radar, another perhaps unpopular position that I have. You're reinvesting your retained earnings to lower the assessment. And I'm wondering if consideration has been given to reinvesting them into reserve funds that are funded by the assessment, the bulkhead and drainage reserves. You pretty much deplete those each year, which is responsible cost management. But I would like to see that possibility considered.
So can I respond? Do you want me
Yeah.
to respond? So I can respond on that and actually welcome the opportunity to be able to. So let's take the drainage first because you have a bunch of them in there. So the drainage, before I started, we didn't even have a drainage reserve. We put that in there. We reallocated resources there. There was not an increase, and certainly not an increase in the assessment. The assessment actually decreased during that period where we set up a reserve. Now, you are right, that reserve gets depleted, but we refund it every year, and we've put more and more in there. And we've actually, over the last 4 or 5 years, well over $1 million, just like the mailboxes. So we have moved more there. The bulkheads is a little different, and maybe we need to articulate more on the bulkheads. The bulkheads are funded with a separate bulkhead differential, and I spoke about that today. That's what funds that. Technically, the reserves that we have built up are all pretty much earmarked for replacement. And now we have these other reserves, the drainage, the roads, and I'm missing one, new capital. I believe that was put in under when you were president, Colette. So we've been funding them. So the bulkhead is separate. There has been a debate for the 25 years that I've been looking at this, or 2022, where it is when you come down to these bulkheads where somebody says, well, there's no house there. You know, is that a public bulkhead? And what prior to us, they put a $25 differential into the general fund, which sometimes is 0, sometimes is 15, 10, or 25. I've seen that over the years, depending on what we're doing there. So there's this big debate about, and you could take it right here over to the left on Clubhouse Drive. You have a bulkhead that we're replacing with houses behind it. That certainly comes under the bulkhead differential. But what about that bulkhead on the other side of the channel, the canal, right? Oh, that's golf. Golf doesn't need a channel or a canal. Why would it be golf? So it's a debate. Oh, it's a public one. But without that bulkhead, all the people that utilize that canal with their boats, as well as every other canal that's connected in there. So then would you say, is that part of the bulkhead differential? So that's the big debate. What we have done is we've kind of balanced it. I've tried to balance it, especially now with the DMA study, trying to offset it. We did put money in there to give us a fresh start with the DMA study. Hopefully I answered your 2 questions.
Okay,
If I
Thank you,
missed something,
John.
just let me know.
Thank you, Colette.
And sure, is my time up?
Yes.
Some of it was used by,
Okay,
well, I just.
I need a-
thank
one
you.
more comment.
Thank
more
you for
comments.
supporting my application to the Budget and Finance Committee. And I second Amy's comments about the appreciation dinner.
Thank you. Any additional question? Come forward.
Yes, I'm Ann Shockley, 273 Windjammer Road. I wanted to speak to 2 different things. First, the Good Neighbors Award, which I see that Lane will be addressing later on. I don't see the Hoffmans here. What they did was they had to redo their lawn. And so they had to get rid of a lot of plants, contacted Patty Lookner from the Garden Club. And we made arrangements Public Works helped to eradicate a lot of the old roses at Pintail Park, which is kind of a garden that we steward. And so they donated over $700 worth of plants. If you had had to go to any nursery, that's what it would have cost you at least. And so we replaced all the roses around Pintail Park. We added several hydrangeas. We added tall grasses. We added some other bushes. And so it was a great thing. And we were really appreciative that they sought to notify us and ask us if this is something that we would like to be a part of, rather than just pitching them somewhere. The other thing I'd like to address too, I understand there is a possibility of slips being built, boat slips, being built here at the corner of where the canal bends.
Yeah, that's been tabled for the unforeseen future.
Thank you, because it's totally unnecessary. But as a former boat owner and a golfer, not a good idea. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shockley. Any additional questions come forward? You always dress to the nines there, sir.
Yeah. Okay, my name's Giuseppe Giovanni Kosha. I just want to bring some friendly things to your attention. That builder's risk policy, apparently you're building for 60 weeks down there on the new building. It runs 52 weeks. So you're going to have an additional 8 weeks or so. And I'd be upfront with that insurance policy and make sure that they're aware of that, because you might have to run the second full 52 weeks, or they might make a deal with you. But you might want to be upfront about that, for one thing. Make sure that they're aware that the police department's very active in Ocean Pines, and they're going to keep an eye on that building while it's under construction. They'll like that very, very favorably. If they're going to require you to supervise that job on a daily basis, it's going to be cheaper on your insurance. Builder's risk insurance is very expensive. It's different than just a contractor that puts floors down or something. That's nothing like builder's risk. I've had it. I've built houses in the North Gate. I've built them in the South Gate. The compression soil is of different values in the North than the South. So you're building these huge buildings with fire department protocols. Okay, you're going to be careful with that concrete down there. It's going to be difficult in a South Gate unless that compression is the same as on the North Gate. That's just something you might want to think about. The touch of Italy. Okay, I was in the restaurant business a little bit. You have the bars under certain requirements, and then he's taking certain requirements, and you're taking certain requirements. I would get that insurance company and make sure everybody's on the same page before he's responsible for something, and then you have the bar, but he has this and he has that. You better get it written down and make sure that you're in tune with it, because if something happens unusual, God forbid, a fire or somebody gets hurt, you got to find out who's actually totally responsible for that, because he's taking certain attributes, you're going to take certain attributes. Okay. So that's just something for you to think about. I would put it in Ocean Pines, the magazines, what the linear feet is, square feet is, cubic feet is, what the siding is, what the roofing is, and what the requirements are on the code. Because that hurricane code might be 155 mile an hour down there. I don't know if it's 120. You'd have to get straight and see what code book that contractor's using and make sure he's got that code book on the job when he's working there. So you can go up there and he's working, and if you're there supervising on a daily basis, you want that code book on the job. Because if you got a question, or if a contractor's got a question, you want that code book there. And it's active and it saves your liability causes. I could go on with more, but I think that's good enough for now.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Any additional questions before we close the floor for public comments? Seeing none, I'll close the floor for public comments. We'll move on to capital request. We have none. CPI violations.
Okay, these violations have received a first and second notice, and we're recommending the 4 violations legal and suspend voting and amenity rights. 2 violations at 4 Whitesdale Circle and 1 violation at 32 Royal Oaks Drive.
Thank you, Linda. Uh, do we need to make a motion to suspend rights? Do I have a motion to suspend the voting rights for these 2 properties?
Can I just slight change to the motion? Motion to amend voting rights and amenity use rights and refer them at the CPI violations
Yeah, I
to
didn't-
legal counsel for judicial action.
Yeah, I didn't think that, I didn't know we were doing that. So do I have a motion? Second? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Thank you. You guys caught me up on that one. Sorry. Unfinished business moving along, we have none. New business. We have a motion to approve the fiscal 26-27 fiscal budget. The motion is to approve for the 26-27 fiscal budget. Do I have a motion?
How
Oh,
about a-
Monica, go ahead and read it. Jump ahead.
Thanks.
Pulling a stew.
I move to approve the budget for the fiscal year 2026, 2027. Our operating revenue and operating expenses, $13,441,823. Our bulkhead expenses are $1,250,389. Capital expenses, general replacement for roads, drainage, and new capital, $6,029,807. Assessment interest revenue transferred to reserves, $4,381,476. Assessment for non-water lots, $915. Assessment for non-water estates, $1,373. Assessment for water, $1,580. Assessment for water estate, $2,370. Assessment water non-bulkhead, $1,005, and assessment non-water bulkhead estate, $1,508. The purpose is to approve the motion. Approval of the motion will allow the use of funds as noted for operating and capital expenses associated with the general operations of the association. A thorough review has been completed by the GM, his team, by the Budget and Finance Committee, and by the Board of Directors. The budget was posted to the OPA website for review by the membership. A public meeting was held January 15th, 2026, to present the budget to the membership and have an open discussion with membership to discuss and address questions or concerns.
Thank you, Monica. Do we have a motion to approve the 2026-27 fiscal budget? Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? Any discussion? Go ahead, Jeff.
Thank you, John. Hey, John Viola, you mentioned the fact earlier that about 42% of this budget is safety related, and safety is key to our lifestyle and prosperity here in Ocean Pines. In fact, it's priceless. Take a look around the state. In fact, take a look around the U.S. We are so fortunate to live in such a safe environment. John, you and your team have done a yeoman's job with this budget. The proposed budget is yet another example of your exemplary work. I mean, just look at the performance of our food and beverage, golf, and many of our amenities. So, job well done.
I'm just going to add a comment as well. We had some questions regarding, the approving this budget at this meeting, and just so everyone knows, and I think John said it. They started earlier this year. The team is very efficient in doing it. We had the budget and finance meeting, we had the board meeting, we had the town hall. this thing could sit out, but it's done, it's ready, we're ready to approve that. So I just want to clear that up because some of the conversation, I think we had two comments on that we should wait to February. But any other discussion? Go ahead, Steve.
Thanks. Thanks, John. I will vote for this budget. I think John and the staff really deserve a lot of credit for putting together a pretty good document. They've done very well. I have a couple of concerns that I will raise. And dealing with the public comments relating to the volunteer dinner, I don't have a problem with the volunteer dinner. And I have no problem with one being held this year. I think the problem comes from the fact that the board voted to eliminate all those committees. That's the issue. My opinion, I voted against it. My opinion is the board shouldn't have done that. But what has happened, and so we're still going to have a volunteer dinner. I also will note, I have a little bit less experience than particularly Doug and Colette, but I do know that both the Budget and Finance Committee review and the board review used to run 3, I guess even at some point 4 days. John would probably, we got done, both of those in, each one took less than a day. And that's, point being, that's a compliment to the staff. Having a document easy to go through. Thanks, Keith. Yeah, thanks, John. As I was saying, there's a couple of points about the marina that I think are worth keeping in mind. One is we have a wait list for people who want to rent slips. We also have a pricing schedule that is below virtually every other marina in the area. And between the two, it's basic economics that you have greater demand than you do supply, and that could lead to that should generally lead to some sort of price increase. That the budget calls for a 3% increase in the marina, which normally you would say, okay, that's a normal incremental increase. The problem is this: the apportionment of funds to cover the county increase in water and sewer accounts for 1.3% of that 3%. And that's not my number, by the way. That is our wizard expert, Mr. John Viola. The other thing is that leaves only for inflation 1.7%. If you talk about annual inflation rates, the lowest projection you're seeing right now for this country is 3%. It's more likely to be a little bit higher, but it's someplace, let's say, in the 3 to 4% range. We're not even covering inflation. And we have the ability, quite frankly, to raise the rate to just increase, to just cover inflation, let alone generate any amount of additional revenue for the association. That was not done this year. I'm not faulting the staff. When this was raised at the board review, this is my impression, the response we got was that this was essentially a marker because the previous year we had increased, I'm trying to recall what it was, I want to say about 8 or 9%, because the prior 3 years we hadn't done anything. We had barely accounted for inflation. And so I had an amendment to offer, but based upon what I was told and what I had heard at the board review, there were votes would never to be passed. So the budget is worth passing. But I do think going forward, this is something we have to keep an eye on. And I would certainly encourage staff, budget and finance, and the board as we look down the road the next several years to view the marina as something where we have some flexibility to arrange to raise some additional revenue and offset what costs might come from other either amenities or just general expenses. Our rackets, for argument's sake, I think we've raised maybe 1%, which I believe we'll use as a baseline to see what happens with membership and usage going forward. That makes sense. But we do have some flexibility. I would have preferred us to take advantage of it, but I do think it's worth keeping an eye on.
Monica?
Thanks, John. Look, I agree there is room for to look at that going forward. But, we also have had other cost increases to try and keep up. We are putting money in our reserves. We're maintaining a healthy budget. And as far as 4 members having boats, I think 3 do. I have a jet ski and only 1, I think, is at the marina. Others have their own docks at their houses. Thank you.
Go ahead, Steve.
Monica, I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I understand, and I'm not saying anybody voted out of personal interest. That's not my point.
No,
I think overall we could have generated more revenue out of that side of the equation, but that's all.
Thank you, Steve. Any other discussion? Elaine?
I look at it in a different way, and I think sometimes we get wrapped up in percentages, which doesn't always show the true story. I also am not a proponent of raising stuff just because we can. I think when you have to look at what the actual pocket dollars are for everything that we are working on in the budget. We certainly, if you want to, talk about percentages, we have certain amenities that were only bumped up 1% this year. And it's an amenity that isn't making money. So those sorts of things. I mean, there are certain things in each category that I think our general manager looks at very closely, and his team, as to what is reasonable. This year, there certainly was, because last year there was a lot of bump up in certain areas, that this year it was going to be kind of modest all the way around. And so I think, when we get wrapped up in these percentages, I think we just lose the real picture of what's going on out of people's pockets. I also, again, just because we can, I don't think it's fair. And that's my view.
Any other discussion before we move on? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor to approve the 26-27 fiscal budget, please say aye. Any opposed? Any additional discussion? That motion passes. Let the record reflect that vote was unanimous. I guess it's still considered unanimous without Stu. All right, moving on. Motion to approve revisions to Resolution M06, elections and referendum procedures. Jeff.
Thank you, John. Yeah, this is a motion to approve the first reading, which occurred at the last board meeting, which are revisions to Resolution M06, the elections and referendum procedures. The purpose and effect, these changes will correct difficulties encountered during last year's election process. The resolution received a first reading on December 20th, 2025 during a regular board meeting. There are 5 changes. Change number 1 in section 5, the candidate applications. The proposal is to change the time allotted for solicitation of additional candidates when the list of eligible candidates is less than 2 more than the vacancies to be filled. The current allotted time is June 1st through the 3rd Friday in June. Changing allotted time to 7 business days, this would change the deadline from June 19th, if nothing was done, to June 9th. This excessive time period was found to adversely affect the proper time of significant voting process events that followed by this excessive time wait. Change number 2, section 3, voting deadline. Proposal is to change a voting deadline from prior to the end of the association regular business hours to noon on the Wednesday before the annual meeting. The end of regular business hours can make it challenging to organize overnight delivery to the voting contractor, especially from the drop box. Change number 3, attachment A, section 7, paragraph C. Added more detailed narrative for the association's secure ballot box preparation. Quote, prepared utilizing the same instructions which indicate the marking and return of ballots, unquote. The lack of this detail last year led to ballot return preparation confusion when using the drop box. Change 4, this is a simple adding a comma in attachment A, section 9, paragraph G that was missing. And the last change, number 5, attachment A, section 11, paragraph C, subparagraph 4, defining the time frame for the post-election election committee meeting. Current time is defined as the day of the annual meeting or to as soon as possible after the annual meeting. The proposal is to change the time frame to no longer than 5 days after the annual meeting.
Thank you, Jeff. Do I have a motion to approve the revisions to Resolution M06? Do I have a second? Any discussion? I'll call in question. All those in favor say aye. That motion passes. Let the record reflect that vote was unanimous. The next motion is motion to approve the contract for the South Fire Station and authorize execution of contract by the president. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you. That motion passes. Again, let that record reflect the vote was unanimous. Moving on, Elaine for the Historic Task Group update.
Yes, this is always something I enjoy doing, is kind of keeping everybody up to date on what we're doing. We've had a fantastic task group that has been working on this. We have gotten through the first stage, was collecting the various memorabilia and information, cataloging it, all of that has been done. John gave us a nice room over in the admin building to store all of this information. And the folks who have been on that committee have really done an amazing job of finding materials, cataloging it. And now I'm, happy to let everybody know that we're going to go into stage 2. We have decided to do a coffee table book, very similar to the ones that Bunk Man has done in Ocean City. I think most of you are aware of that. And it's going to be a great project. It'll be something we'll actually probably make some money on, but that isn't the point. It's to, let people know, new folks, people who've been here a long time, to know the history of Ocean Pines and to be able to see the growth and what has happened with it. So I'm very excited that we're going to be started on that. Tony Russo, who some of you know, he's done our podcast. He was also when I had the Bayside Gazette, he was our editor. He's a great writer. He is also now a published author. Stephanie Fowler, who has Saltwater Media, is going to be working with us on that. We are in our agreements, we've got the contracts in play right now, is that we will retain ownership, which is I felt very important to that, because you can either have an author who has done it like Buck Man does, or we can retain the ownership, which we are going to do, and he is going to be what's considered a ghost writer on it, because he knows how to write. So anyway, I'm very excited. They'll start on it within the next month or so, and it'll probably take about a year before you all will be able to get copies. But that's just, a fun next step. So we also found some other things that we thought were lost. The original agreement, we were able to get a copy. Thankfully, a lot of the folks that are on the task group were here from the get-go. And so they did have copies of certain things. So we found the copy of the Boise Cascade agreement. And I don't know if anybody knows, how much they paid for those. I think it's 7 farms that I was kind of surprised. It was $1.7 million to have Ocean Pines at that point, which I thought was pretty fascinating. So anyway, we're moving along, and it's kind of a fun project.
Yes, you got the Good Neighbor Award.
The Good Leader. I'm not sure if any of those folks are here. We had expected, I thought, that the Hoffmans were here, but they did not. Okay, so you've already talked about the wonderful things that they did. Yes. Oh, okay, great, because I was told that you might not be here. So yes, come on up, please.
Come on down.
That's right, come on down. Appreciate that very much. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I'll also note about Pat Kroger was nominated by Denny Kroger. And Pat It does weeds, sweeps, gathers leaves, pine cones, needles for the entire cul-de-sac. She also scoops up mud that gathers near the curbs after each rain. She helps out part-time residents by weeding their yards and mows the common areas and the vacant lot on the cul-de-sac. So it's always nice. It's, these neighbors helping neighbors is, always nice to be able to see the folks doing that. So thank them all. Wonderful lady from the garden club already. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know we had
Yeah,
another
so
one.
we did. That was the third one.
We're going to move on, but I got to take a second here. I kind of glossed over this last motion on the fire station. I meant to say that this board wants to thank John Viola, Linda, the entire team for putting this packet right here is a lot of work, and there's been a lot of work on that team. And we're very, very happy to get to the point today to put ink on this contract. But I want to thank you guys and your entire team, because I know many, many people were involved in this and pulling this thing together, and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, so thank you. Well, I said everybody. They're not here, but yes. But yes, Joe Anston, Joey Widgeon as well, and their team. So moving on, we have an appointment for the Budget and Finance for the second term, Colette Horn. Do we have a motion? Second? Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor, say aye. Welcome back to the Budget and Finance Committee, Colette. Congratulations. And moving on, adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Second?